My beloved child, as you sit in this modern age surrounded by the hum of machines, the glow of screens, the rhythm of notifications, and the endless web of connections, I want you to pause and realize that none of these things have come into your life by accident, for I have always been present not only in the mountains and rivers and stars, but also in the quiet unfolding of human invention, the spark of imagination, the courage to build the tools that now carry voices across oceans and preserve memories inside small glowing rectangles that rest in your hands. And even when you feel overwhelmed by technology, even when you feel lost in the noise, I am there whispering through it, guiding through it, reminding you that Providence is not limited to the ancient stories of miracles, but flows still today through the everyday devices that surround you, because nothing in creation exists outside of my care, and I see you when you wake in the morning. Groggy eyes reaching for the phone that rests beside your bed, scrolling through messages and headlines and weather reports. And though it may seem ordinary, do you not see how extraordinary it is that in a moment you can know the temperature outside the news from across the world, or the words of encouragement sent by a friend many miles away? What once required weeks of waiting now arrives instantly, and in that swiftness, there is a reminder of how I answer prayers sometimes, not with thunder or fire, but with quiet, timely provision through the works of human hands that I inspired long before you even knew what you would need. There was once a man who traveled often for work, and one evening as he drove alone across a dark highway, his car suddenly broke down in a place with no lights, no towns nearby, and his heart sank in fear because he was far from help. But he remembered that in his pocket was a small device that could summon assistance with a single call, and he lifted it and pressed, and within minutes a tow truck was on the way, and as he later told his family, he realized that though the phone was made by human minds, it was Providence that placed it in his hand at that moment. For without it, his story might have ended in despair and danger, but instead it ended with rescue and gratitude, and the quiet recognition that I had worked through what appeared to be an ordinary tool. And have you considered how medicine has advanced in this age? How machines now scan the body and reveal hidden illness? How surgeons use instruments guided by cameras so tiny they enter where the human eye cannot see, and how lives once lost to infections are now saved through antibiotics and vaccines. Do you not see my providence there too? For I am the giver of wisdom and the source of discovery. And when scientists unravel mysteries of DNA or unlock cures for diseases, it is not apart from me, but within my design, for every good and perfect gift flows from above. And just as I once guided shepherds and kings, I now guide doctors and engineers so that my children may find healing through the marriage of faith and science. Yet I know sometimes you feel uneasy about technology. You wonder if it separates you from the quiet whisper of prayer. You wonder if it distracts you from stillness and holiness. But I tell you, this technology itself is not your enemy. It is a vessel, like a river, that can carry either clean water or polluted waste, depending on what you choose to pour into it. If you use it to connect to loved ones, to learn truth, to spread kindness, then it becomes holy ground, a channel of my providence. But if you use it only to escape, to compare, to indulge in bitterness, then it becomes a trap. Not because I willed it, but because human hearts misuse what was given in love. Remember the story of Sarah, a young mother who drove through a storm with her sick child in the back seat. Her prayers rose desperately into the night, and at that very moment her GPS rerouted her away from an accident, clearing her path to the hospital. She later said that she knew it was my hand guiding her through that screen because she felt the timing too perfect to be mere chance. And indeed, my child, I was there answering through the tool in her car, for Providence is not bound to burning bushes or parted seas. It often hides in the quiet algorithms, the radio signals, the satellites in the sky, all of which exist only because I first breathed curiosity into the minds of inventors. And so I ask you, when you look at your phone or computer, do not only see wires and glass and circuits, but see a mirror of the creativity I placed within humanity. See a reminder that I am present in your daily life, not far off, but woven into the very fabric of your routines. For even when you watch a sermon streamed online, or send a prayer request through email, or listen to sacred music through headphones, you are participating in a moment where my providence and technology intersect. And yes, there are dangers. There are voices that misuse these gifts, spreading lies, stirring fear, sowing division. But never doubt that light is greater than darkness, and if you seek me, you will find me even here, even in this digital age. For I do not abandon my children to the tools they create. Instead, I breathe through them, guiding them toward higher purposes, whispering through the code and the circuit and the screen. And I want you to remember how in times of crisis, when disasters strike, when storms cut off roads, and when fear takes hold of communities, technology often becomes the very bridge of survival. A text message that reaches a family trapped in floodwaters, a signal that guides rescuers to those hidden in rubble, a drone that delivers supplies to the hungry, a generator that powers machines keeping a patient alive in the hospital. And while the world may call these things innovation or luck, you must look deeper and see that I am working through them, weaving threads of mercy into the fabric of human struggle, reminding you that though suffering exists, you are never abandoned, because providence moves not only through angels unseen, but also through the wires and circuits and software of your age. I see you when you bow your head at night, exhausted from the noise of the day, and yet you pick up your phone one last time and scroll past words of encouragement, a verse of scripture, an image that lifts your spirit, and you may think it coincidence, but I tell you there are no coincidences, only moments of my timing. For just as I once placed manna in the desert, I now place reminders of hope in the digital deserts of your scrolling screens, so that even when your heart feels dry, you might taste my living water through words that arrive exactly when you need them. Consider also the soldiers far from home, whose loved ones once waited months for letters. Now in the span of a heartbeat can see the face of their child, hear the laughter of their spouse, share a prayer through a glowing screen across oceans and time zones. Is this not providence that in their loneliness, I have given them a way to remain connected, that no wall, no battlefield, no distance can silence love, because love itself is my language, and technology becomes its carrier. And think of the countless prayers whispered in hospital waiting rooms, prayers of parents over sick children, prayers of children over aging parents, prayers of patients awaiting news. And then consider the monitors that track each heartbeat, the machines that breathe when lungs cannot, the scanners that reveal what human eyes cannot see, and the medicines that restore life, where once there was only despair. These too are gifts of providence hidden in the hands of doctors and nurses, guided by knowledge that I inspired. For even as you pray, I answer not always with a sudden miracle, but often through the steady hand of a surgeon, the quiet hum of a ventilator, the precise calculation of a chemist. And though the world may see science alone, you must know it is I who breathed wisdom into the minds that discovered it. Yet you must also understand that technology is a double-edged sword. It can heal, but it can also harm. It can connect, but it can also isolate. It can carry light, but it can also spread darkness. And that is why I call you to choose wisely, to let your devices be instruments of compassion, not division of truth, not deceit of healing, not harm. And when you feel overwhelmed by the flood of voices in your screen, remember to pause, breathe, and listen for my whisper, for I am still speaking, and I can be heard, even in the quiet between notifications, if only you will silence the noise long enough to remember me. I remember a young man named Daniel who had fallen into despair, his mind clouded by thoughts of ending his life. He felt unseen, unheard, and alone. Yet one night, as he scrolled endlessly through his phone, a video appeared with words that pierced his darkness, words reminding him that he was loved, that his life had purpose, that there was still hope. And he later said that he knew in his heart it was not chance, but providence that placed that message before his eyes in the exact moment he needed it for. I had moved through the algorithms, through the unseen pathways of digital space, to reach one broken soul and remind him that I still had plans for him, plans to give him a future and a hope. And this is what I want you to understand, my beloved child, that I am not absent from your modern world. I am present in every detail. I am present when satellites orbit to bring you weather forecasts that protect farmers from loss. I am present when translation software allows strangers to understand one another across languages. I am present when prosthetic limbs restore movement to those who thought they would never walk again. I am present when a teacher in one corner of the world shares knowledge with a child in another, and that child grows to become the very one who will invent the next tool of compassion. You must see the pattern, the web of Providence stretching far wider than human eyes can see. But you must also guard your heart, for though these tools are gifts, they are not gods. They are not meant to replace me. They are meant to serve you, and through you serve others. If you give them more devotion than you give to love, if you let them consume your every waking hour, then they become idols, and idols will always disappoint. But if you hold them in balance, if you use them with gratitude, then they become holy instruments woven into your daily walk with me. And so I invite you, each time you lift your phone, each time you open your computer, each time you use the tools of your age, pause for a breath and whisper a prayer. Thank you, Lord, for this gift. Guide me to use it well. Let it bring life and not harm. Let it carry light and not darkness. Let it remind me of your providence in the smallest of things, and in that moment your ordinary device becomes a sacred space, a meeting point of technology and eternity. And I want you to see how even in the quietest moments of your daily life, my providence flows through the technology you often overlook, like the tiny notification that reminds you of a birthday that might have slipped your mind. But instead, you send a message that brings joy to someone who thought they were forgotten, or the calendar alert that nudges you to keep a promise that otherwise would have been broken, or the map that steers you safely home when you wander into unfamiliar streets. These may appear small, but is it not true that life itself is woven of small moments? And therefore is it not also true that providence often works in whispers rather than shouts? Think of the family spread across states, grandparents in one city, children in another, siblings scattered across the country. And yet on a Sunday afternoon, they gather not around a physical table but through a video call, sharing laughter across screens, singing happy birthday to a little one miles away. And though they long to embrace in person, they also marvel that their love has found a way to travel through wires and signals and satellites. Is this not providence that, in an age where distance could divide hearts, I have provided a tool to bridge the gap to remind you that love knows no distance when carried in the current of grace? And remember also how quickly news travels today. Once it took weeks for word to cross an ocean. Now it takes seconds. And while this speed can spread fear, it can also spread compassion. A disaster strikes, and within hours, strangers across the world send aid, volunteers arrive, prayers rise, and supplies flow where they are needed most. And yes, the world will say technology made it possible. But you, my child, must see deeper and recognize the unseen hand that moved human hearts to create these networks long before the need arose, so that when suffering came, help would not delay for this too. Is providence yet? I see your struggles. I see how the constant flood of information leaves you weary. I see how comparison steals your joy, how endless scrolling numbs your heart, how even children lose themselves in glowing screens, forgetting the wonder of creation. And this is why I call you to balance, to wisdom, to Sabbath. Rest, not to abandon the gifts of technology, but to sanctify them, to use them with intention and gratitude, to let them serve you rather than enslave you. For when you rest from them, when you step outside and breathe under the open sky, you remember that providence is not confined to devices, but is present also in the wind, the trees, the stars, the human touch. Do you recall the moment when vaccines were discovered, when pandemics that once wiped out millions could be prevented with a simple injection? Think of the countless prayers over centuries, prayers of mothers weeping for children lost to illness, prayers of fathers begging for healing, prayers of entire communities desperate for relief. And now consider that through microscopes and laboratories, those prayers were answered not in a single moment, but through generations of persistence until knowledge unfolded at the right time and lives were saved. And though the world gives credit to science alone, I tell you, Providence was the architect, the one who planted curiosity in scientists, the one who aligned events so discoveries would come when humanity most needed them. And there is the story of a doctor in an emergency room who once said that she saw miracles every day, not in the sudden disappearance of illness, but in the timing of technology. A defibrillator arriving at the exact second, a heart-stopped an organ donor found just in time for a dying patient, a blood test revealing what could have been missed. And she said, though she was trained in science, she could not deny that again and again the timing felt divine. And she whispered a prayer of thanks because she knew she was witnessing providence disguised as coincidence. And I want you to hold close the truth that I work not only in cathedrals and chapels, but also in laboratories and classrooms in code, written by programmers and satellites launched into orbit, for I am the source of wisdom, and every tool created in love, every discovery that brings life, every invention that bridges loneliness is part of my unfolding plan. But hear me, well-beloved child, for while these gifts flow from Providence, they are entrusted to your stewardship. And with stewardship comes responsibility. You must choose how to use them. You must choose whether your words online bring peace or harm, whether your time spent with screens nourishes your soul or drains it, whether your engagement with technology brings you closer to me or distracts you from the whisper of my spirit. And this is why I ask you not to fear technology, but to consecrate it, dedicate it in prayer. Ask each morning, guide me, Lord, in how I use these tools. Let them be instruments of your love. And when you pray this way, I promise I will guide you, for I am not distant from your devices. I am present in your choices. There was once a teacher who lived in a small town with few resources. Yet through the gift of online platforms, she connected her students to lectures from around the world, to libraries once locked away, to mentors they would never meet in person. And years later, one of her students became a doctor who returned to that same town and built a clinic. And she wept when she realized that a simple connection made through technology had blossomed into a providence that changed an entire community. And so I tell you again, technology is not just wires and codes. It is soil into which I plant seeds of providence, seeds that can grow into miracles when nurtured with love and wisdom. And I want you to see my providence even in the smallest things, like the voice assistant that reminds an elderly person to take their medicine on time, preventing sickness and worry, or the smart device that alerts a family when smoke fills a house, saving lives before flames consume them, or the hearing aid that allows a grandfather to hear his granddaughter sing for the very first time, or the text message that simply says, "I love you," arriving at the exact moment when someone feels unseen and unloved. For these are not random, these are not just conveniences. They are threads of a larger tapestry that I am weaving to remind humanity that I am present in every detail of your lives. Think also of how in moments of great isolation, when the world was locked indoors, when fear spread faster than footsteps, technology carried worship into living rooms, sermons streamed prayers, shared hymns, sung through screens, and though the doors of churches were closed, the doors of hearts remained open. Because I was not bound to buildings, I was present through the fragile lines of internet and cameras, reminding you that when 2 or 3 gather even virtually in my name, I am there among them. And you must remember the young woman named Rachel, who once said she felt completely lost, drifting without direction, until one evening she opened her phone and a devotional app sent her a verse of encouragement, and she felt as if it had been written just for her, and in that moment she began to pray again, after years of silence, And later she told her friends it was not the app. It was Providence speaking through the app, because God will use whatever He must to reach the heart that longs for Him. I tell you, beloved child, that even the very structure of the Internet, a web connecting billions, mirrors the truth that all souls are connected through me, for just as data flows unseen through cables and airwaves, love too flows unseen across time and space. And while the world marvels at how small technology has made the earth, you must marvel even more at how vast my providence is, that it reaches through every connection, every device, every signal, to bring light into the darkest corners. Yet I also call you to caution, for there are voices that twist these gifts, for greed, for division, for harm, and you must not be deceived by them. You must remember that your heart is not made for endless comparison, not made to measure worth by followers or likes, not made to drown in noise, but to rest in me. So use these tools, but do not be used by them. Walk with wisdom. Let your eyes seek what uplifts. Let your words sow kindness. Let your time online reflect eternity. For when you do, this technology becomes not a trap, but a testimony of my providence. And know that I delight when you share a message of encouragement online, when you send prayers to friends through a screen, when you donate through a digital platform to feed the hungry, when you use your camera to capture beauty and remind others of hope. For these small acts ripple outward farther than you can see, and someday in eternity you will understand how one message changed a life, how one click of kindness redirected despair into hope, how one story lifted a soul from darkness. There was once a pastor who began sharing short messages of faith through videos, not knowing if anyone would listen. But in another city, a man ready to give up on life stumbled upon one of those videos late at night, and it gave him strength to face another day. And months later, that man wrote to the pastor saying, "Your message saved me," and the pastor wept because he realized it was not his words, but Providence using technology as a bridge between two hearts across miles of separation. So I say again, my providence is not distant, it is not hidden, it is not confined to the pages of ancient texts. It is alive in your present moment. It is woven into your cars, your phones, your hospitals, your classrooms, your very breath. And though you may forget me amid the noise, I never forget you. I never leave you. I am present in your technology, not as the device itself, but as the love that flows through it, the timing that shapes it, the wisdom that guides it. And when one day new inventions come, when humanity creates tools you cannot yet imagine, do not fear them, but ask, where is providence in this? How might this serve love? How might this carry light? Because as long as you walk in faith, every tool can become holy. Every discovery can become sacred. Every technology can become a vessel of grace. So let your heart be at peace. Do not think of this age as too modern, too digital, too distracted to know me, for I am the same yesterday, today, and forever. And if I could speak through prophets, if I could guide through dreams, if I could part seas and feed thousands with bread, then surely I can also whisper through a notification, or guide through a signal, or comfort through a song played on your headphones. And you must know that nothing is too small, nothing is too ordinary, nothing is beyond the reach of providence. And now, beloved child, I invite you to take this truth into your daily life. Each time you use technology, pause and give thanks for the unseen hands that made it possible, the countless minds inspired, the countless prayers answered through it, and whisper, "Guide me, Lord, to use this gift well." And as you do, I will answer, I will guide, I will bless, and you will begin to see that even in the glow of screens, even in the buzz of machines, even in the endless streams of data, my light shines, my voice speaks, and my providence endures. So walk with courage, live with gratitude, use technology as a servant of love, and always remember you are never alone, for even in this modern age, even in every pixel and signal and circuit, I am with you always, even to the end of the age.